comments in their feasibility was, what do we think we're going to do with the track? Are we going to keep it as is? Are we going to expand? And kind of look at that. And that obviously now is the time to forecast where we think we may end up. So I think prior, the board went with the as-is for softball. So that's where this kind of plays into part. So if we keep the 3 designs I have there is option 1, which is the SK1A, which is that second one, is an as-is with an expanded track in the interior. And you can see that even encroaches even more space into softball. And then subsequently, there was a conversation of, okay, if we're going to redo the track in the future, there's a potential that we would want to expand to potentially 8 lanes. So they wanted to show us what that would look like. So the 8 lanes obviously encroaches completely into the softball as is. So there is no potential for that to even happen. So that's kind of like option 1 is keeping softball as is, track as is. And we can design it as such, design around that. The second option was this one, which is keep softball as is with a potential future plan for track to expand. And we would need to know that in the design of softball to say, we can't do much past this point because then it infringes upon what we're going to do with the track in the future. And then the last 2 options are a 6 and 8 lane track, but reoriented softball based off of the feasibility study pitch when they said we want to reorient softball. So this is why we're bringing it back, because they brought on the table of, we're not going to have any room to do anything with the track. You want to bring that back up to the board and say, if we're going to do something, now is the opportunity. And as Shelley alluded to, when we went down to it, the advantages of reorienting the softball, we believe as administration outweighs keeping like the softball as is. So that's something we need to discuss here tonight, because when we go to design, we're going to start getting into some intricate details that we can pick and choose from, but we can't do all 3 of these options and design all 3. It would take too much time and it would end up costing too much money to just throw away 2 of the options. So that's where we're looking for, and Shelley, if I missed anything, feel free to add in some stuff, but that's where we're kind of, where we're at here at a district that says we're looking for some direction from the board of where should we spend our time. So
where are your numbers, Tom?
We don't have any at the moment, because we don't, without going through this, it's going to be those ranges like they gave us. So we still have the same range as what they said before with reorienting softball.
You should remind me.
So when we went back, I actually don't have them right here in front of me, but that's where we would have to go back and look at those. So to your point, Brian, the question with the numbers is, obviously that comes back down to the design portion, is if the numbers would come in too high, when we get to the design, you design it down. So that's part of the design phase. So that's what we're recommending is, which one of these do we design to see the cost? Because once we start designing the intricate details of how big are the dugouts, how big are the scoreboards, how much fence, what type of fence, all that stuff's going to be a cost factor that we get to decide within the design phase, and it's going to be a wide range still on that.
Do we have a high end for that design phase for what we looked at with reorienting or not?
We do, and I had to pull it. Unfortunately, I didn't have it for tonight, so I can have it on Monday to remind everybody. That was back when, I believe in November, board meeting when we pursued turf track in court to go through and pick that design phase.
Okay, so your recommendation is what is this one?
Yeah, to go forward with seeing what it would cost to go back to reorienting the softball for potential use, future use of track expansion.
So part of this conversation is we kind of have to scope it down to a particular design, and then you find your numbers.
Correct.
Okay, so if this one's picked, all the rest of these, the numbers are going to be exponentially higher.
So
in other words, this is probably the most cost-effective model if we want to do something.
Yeah, so if we remember the as-is for softball versus the reorientation was anywhere from almost $100,000 difference between the two picks. But that's just that's the range they gave us. When we go to build that, that could end up being only $60,000, be based off the stuff we design in the design phase. And that's stuff that we will go through and says this is the most cost effective, this is the most that we're going to get for wear and tear. All that stuff will come out through that design. And we're more than happy to do more than one. It's just, it takes more time to get that. And I know some of the sports are contingent on time frames and how quickly you can get these sped up.
It's just same design company, it's just this is how you want.
Correct.
So it's not like we're having to worry about going out to bid and all that. It's, we've already got what we can work with.
Correct. It's just what do we design within this model? Which model do we pick to design from? Feel free, if you have questions, unfortunately, Brian, I'm sorry I don't have the numbers on in front of me. But anything else besides, like, obviously financial-wise, because we're looking at what we want for athletics. Any questions, concerns?
So I thought that we gave you an idea of what we wanted to spend, and then you were going to design something within that dollar amount, and then we would say, so now we're picking something that isn't even in our dollar range as far as we go.
So the reason.
We're just arbitrarily coming up with something new?
So the reason is, for our discussion, is if there's ever a potential for a track, the softball as is almost.
I wasn't there for that, so.
Yeah.
Was I there for that?
No, you weren't. I don't think you were
I
appointed yet.
remember remembering it.
I don't think you were appointed yet.
So that's
Yes,
where
it was in
when I
November.
talked about the design phase, it's gonna vet out questions. So when we met with Turf Track and Court, that was their biggest thing is, you guys got to figure out what you're doing with the track, because the softball is right there. If
And
you-
that wasn't brought up when we were trying to decide what to do with that.
It was
It
in
was,
November.
it was part of the feasibility study that's talked about that stuff. When we first had it, we had the reorientation, and then based off the financial changes, we changed it to an as-is. Now that was post-meeting them, now this is coming back to say, well, this is the stuff that we talked about. We felt it was our due diligence to bring it in front of the board to say, here's some struggles we're facing if we look to do something in the future.
How many years until we need to resurface the track?
Yeah.
No, we don't have any. We wanted to set up second years.
Actually, I do have the numbers. $27, $28.
27, 28. So roughly 3 years. And
How long do you get out of that? After you
how many years do
resurface
we
it,
get out
I
of
think
that?
it was about
10, a decade?
Yeah. So then,
So if we resurface it, then conceivably it would be 10 years before we improve anything again,
So
or
this,
have an opportunity.
so
to
this
do it.
resurface is the ground level resurface. So you can take off just the top layer resurface, which we've done once. This is, you have to go down to the base layer, which then presents this opportunity for expansion, because you've got to dig down already to resurface
And we
the
have to
bottom.
do that, we have to do that
Regardless.
sort of resurface, we can't
I
just
think
do
that's
the top.
20 years, so we've already resurfaced it once.
All right, but
Now-
what I'm saying is you can't just do the top layer resurface again a
They're
second
gonna
time.
have to dig down to the stones at the bottom
Okay.
to then resurface from the ground up. When they do that, I'm assuming some of the interior track's gonna be tore up in the middle, which then makes the point of, then that kind of cascades, the same thing we talk about athletics. When you start doing one thing, it starts encroaching in other spaces.
Yep.
So you're thinking about appropriating dollars now instead of dollars 3 years from now.
That's my job here at the district level, is to forecast that thinking, and me being here, I don't want us spend the money on the softball to then say, well, we wanted to expand the track, why did we do the softball this way?
Because you can't.
Like,
so Tom, are we expanding the track or are we expanding the field
Not-
inside the track?
not at this time, that's gonna be something we can decide in 3 years, but if there's ever even a 1% chance we are, that makes a decision, that our decision now affects that in 3 years from now. you're gonna say, well, we're gonna have to tear up some of the softball to accommodate some of this. Or we have to forecast this as is around that.
This was already decided.
As I said, that's what the discussion was, and we stopped, because we're like, we can't answer that, we're gonna have to go to the board and talk about this to see if this is even something you want, because if we didn't bring it to you, I feel like it would be just as disservice as, I mean, we're bringing it to you now to change it.
What's the cost gonna be if we would go down this lane and let them design it, and then it comes to the board and we say, no, we can't afford that, we want you to design it the other way?
So a lot of the same materials and everything will coincide. The stuff that wouldn't change, so to say, for instance, between the as-is and the reorientation is the dugouts. We would have to pay for the design cost of the dugouts that we would then not select, or we would not pursue. So like, the fencing's still gonna be there, the scoreboard's still gonna be there. That's still gonna be part of the flat line design. It's some of the stuff that's gonna change if we reorient, that's gonna be a cost factor above and beyond.
So the only difference in reorienting is really the dugouts?
It's gonna be the dugouts, if we wanna do parking, it's going to be the batting cages, just the footers of the batting cages. Those are the two biggest things. Obviously, we're already changing the backstop, so that's a backstop for backstop. Some of it's gonna be like the regrading is gonna change us a little bit, potentially, because we might have to move a little more dirt for reorienting versus as is.
So the decision tonight that we're looking at, recommending, impacts what we would do in 2 to 3 years for the track.
Correct.
Maybe to have in the conversation just a little historical perspective. There was things that got kicked out of the can when we're doing this building over here. And now we're funding Blue Gym, we're funding HVAC, we're funding, because they said, God.
It was $57 million
Right,
at this point.
right, okay, I get it. But now we're addressing it. So is this sort of compared to that we address it now, or do we address it later? I mean, that's what we have to try to decide. If that's what you guys.
Seems like we're trying to do everything
At one time.
at one
And-
time.
and it doesn't-
During a building project.
And by no means do we need the exact decision tonight, but we need a discussion that says, yes, this is something we are interested in. If you're flat out not interested, you just have to let it, that's, then it's off the table. But I just want to bring it up to have a discussion. Yes, we're interested, let's pursue it further, let's continue to get some more numbers, that's kind of the discussion I'm looking for. By no means do we have to make a flat out 100% decision tonight, but we just need some feedback here to move forward.
I'd say that it's definitely interesting so that we're not handcuffing ourselves in the future and eliminating opportunities before we have the opportunity for them. It just all depends on the finances. And if we don't have the numbers to make a decision tonight, we can't make a decision tonight.
And like what Tom said, if there's a 1% chance we're even thinking about expanding the track or expanding the fields, if we don't reorientate, then we're kind of, as you said, we're handcuffed.
Do you have to have a certain number of lanes to host things for like playoffs?
Bigger events, yes,
Bigger events.
yes. It's not really playoffs, but like I have a whole list of like pros for 8-lane tracks.
Well, what's our interest in hosting things? What do
Revenue.
we get out of that as a district?
Revenue.
How much revenue?
It could range from, it depends, if you have like 3 to 5 invitationals a year, it could range from $30,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
So revenue, I'm
It's
talking.
not an insignificant number, okay.
No, and I sent Tom, I have a revenue stream that goes through, because you're dabbling in my world now, you know what I mean? And track meets are a big moneymaker that people don't know about. I mean, besides you charge each team $300 to $500 when they come in, you can charge each, open runner coming in $25. We do that with our kids now that go to indoor meets, but you
Our
can charge.
kids pay that to other schools and venues.
Yeah, and there's not much going on in this area, so.
So have we hosted any other events on our football field? Or for hockey or football, or, I imagine that's.
We could,
right?
like if we had that'd be up to the coaches if they want to organize something. Only thing we could host is like a YAI or championship, but we don't get that money.
Okay.
It goes
Why
to
would we get
YAI.
track money? It would be an open meet?
The track
Rather than
meet money would
YAI.
go to
Correct.
Okay,
us.
Correct.
got you.
Yes.
Got you.
And I don't know if we could host the YAI track meet, because that's every Division 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
I don't know if we
Big
have
enough.
the stand, and
Yeah.
we don't even have the
Yeah.
restrooms, well,
Right.
porta potties we could rent, but there's just so much potential for a track meet that people don't know, and a lot of people don't do it because it's a pain. But like I said, you're in my world, I know how to run one. And what the cost of it would be is hiring a timing company to come in, which would be beneficial because FATs are astronomical, about $25,000–$30,000 to buy an FAT, let alone getting someone to
Tell me what an
run it.
FAT is?
FAT is fully automatic timing.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank
it's, you know, the photo finishes at the
Right.
end, and to buy
Okay.
something like that, schools don't because it costs too much money, and now people don't know how to run it. So what you do is you hire like Lynx, that's a huge popular company, they come in for like $2,000, they do your meet, boom, done, they're out. They even have little iPads for the events, you just go, it's idiot proof too.
Yeah.
Boop, boop, and you're done. So the cost going out isn't much, and your event workers,
So the question really is, if we look at this tonight, as we go forward, if the board wishes to keep the softball field as is and renovate in that same fashion, then we don't have an opportunity to do this with the track without spending more money in the future to do something to the softball field and do that.
No, I'm all for preparing for the future, quite frankly. We missed an opportunity with the gym. We're gonna be down a gym because we haven't put a gym on the renovation and build. We really are. We messed up as far as I'm concerned.
And
then
Ryan,
once we
the
sell
state-
the middle school, we're really gonna be in bad shape as far as gym space goes in the wintertime. I don't know how we're gonna overcome that, other than, trying to rent somewhere out or I don't know what we're gonna do,
be a lot
honestly.
of creative.
Yeah, it will be creative planning, and people are, yeah, absolutely. I work with the youth kids, where are they going? Because the junior high and junior varsity programs are gonna be in there first rather than youth kids. But you can't build a program unless we have youth programs. And I think they're very important for kids. I think athletics are hugely important for kids today.
Shelley, can you
Yeah.
answer a question for me? What would an expansion of the track do to the uses of the infield inside the track?
So the dimensions that they gave us, I went through, and these are full legit size fields.
Yeah.
So soccer would be a 120/70, field hockey 100/60, and if we add lacrosse, we'll have a lacrosse field, because right now we don't. And it would cost us $15,000 to $20,000 to put lines on the turf if we wanted to add
Oh, wow.
lacrosse lines.
Well, that's close to being redone anyway.
Yeah, that'll still cost more, but if we
Yeah.
wanted to put it in sooner rather than later, that's
Right.
what the cost of
Right.
that's gonna be. But, I mean, you can host tournaments there, you can host little camps there, I mean, there's so much, the youth can use it. It's not utilized well right now.
Yeah.
So help me to understand your world a little better.
Okay, you sure?
Right now, we have, what, 60% use of a facility, and if we do this, because your revenue is whatever, or do you even have?
You don't
it?
make any revenue right now on that field right now.
Okay, so
Not-
if this happens to be put forth, will there be revenue, not just, when you say track, you're involving all the different sports that would be in that? It wouldn't be just, like, okay, lacrosse is bringing something, football is bringing something, the
What do
event.
you mean, using the track?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, using the track with 8 lanes, I mean, there's so many benefits of using the wear and tear. You have 8 lanes now, not 6 lanes, so the wear and tear would be spread out evenly. Is that what you're talking about? Just the use of the track or
I'm
the
just trying to
fields?
understand how,
I think he's asking about ticketing for events within the interior of the track.
So, we did mention that, and that would have to be a little creative, and I've seen other schools and how they do it when they don't have like a fence and they don't have like something to barricade. What they've done is blocked off the parking area, so you can't get into the parking area till you buy your ticket. So that was a creative way I just saw done, so that could be a way if we wanted to charge for, a varsity event that's going on there, we can do it that way.
Because the stands are outside of the track.
Yeah, so we'd have to block off the parking lot to kind of do that.
and that's another issue with the stands, because right now the stands are all being put in the track for certain events, right? Am I correct?
No, they're all out.
The
still use our track at all?
Not that I said no right now, so any further charging or anything like that. But no.
Well, I would hate to see you say no. I mean, charge them and let them use it. Otherwise
Right, we haven't
it's
come up with-
training, you
right.
know,
They
yeah.
might, they might not be wanting to pay.
Well, that's okay, then
Right,
they
so that's
can
why I
go
think
somewhere
we're not
else.
using it, right, is because they
But I
don't
mean,
pay
just
for
don't
the
say no,
policy.
say here's, you know, here's what it's gonna cost you, you know, and hopefully we wouldn't charge too much, but.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
know I proposed
Then we're
something.
getting off track though.
Yeah.
with that,
Yeah,
but,
never mind, okay.
um,
Any questions about this?
I think I agree with Ron. I mean, we definitely need to see more information on it, but I think we would be doing a disservice not to be being future-minded, at least in the planning stages.
But we want to get numbers.
Yeah, so this will be, now that we have, so like what I said before, is Turf Track and Court started this. I said, give us models. We can't do anything else until we have these models to have the discussion. Now that we have a discussion and it says we are open to this option, we will now say, okay, let's tentatively give us like a design that says, okay, if we pick these few things, what's some of the costs? Because that was the feasibility, was it was so high level that the range was wide. So when he starts asking questions, we can start just answering, he can give us a better targeted number, and that could be higher or lower than his feasibility study, based on what we picked.
Yeah. Is
What's
this
the
something we
surprise?
could phase in over a half a dozen years? So could we orient the track, I mean, can we reorient the softball field in, say, 1 year, go out another 2-3 years, do your track, go out another, you know, whatever, and phase it in over a half a dozen years? Is that something?
Resurface the track, do it finished.
Yeah, I mean, so we just don't take this all on at once, or is it better to take it all at once? Or
I think that right now, it's just about reorienting.
it's just about
Yeah. Yeah.
reorienting the track, or the softball
Yeah,
track,
so
that's
we-
all it is.
To allow if we, so right now in 27-20, like I said, with the track, that's the first look, for the first time, that's gonna be on the capital project plan to be addressed. The board, like always, when that comes in October, can says, can we get another year? Can we squeeze 2,
Right,
3 more
right.
years? And that's something we will address when that time comes. Right now, that's
So-
just the placeholder for the time.
Okay.
If at that point in time, it's not financially viable, we can squeeze a couple more years, we don't have to do it. But if we don't do, and reorient softball
But if we don't
now-
reorient the softball, nothing can happen
Nothing can
correct.
down the road.
Correct, and that's why we brought it, because if we didn't, then we get to that point, we said, well, now we're looking at expanding, why didn't we bring it up?
And remind me, did we not already approve doing site work on the practice fields for football?
No,
No.
that was declined.
That was declined, okay, all right.
So you're saying, when you give us these numbers, it's not gonna have the track expansion in
It's
it?
just
No,
Correct.
no,
Just
just,
going to be-
just softball.
It's still just softball.
The baseball's gonna stay as is, because until we go through design, I won't have any updated numbers. The softball with this was such a drastic difference when we saw these designs that now we had.
I think
we
I
had
was
to
under the
stop.
impression that we were doing the track too, and it was like
No,
really
but
expensive.
It unfortunately morphed into the track being a, yeah,
Part of the,
major factor.
part of the discussion. Okay, so basically, we're just moving baseball to
Or just reorient softball,
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, we're just gonna look at it to get the cost, and we'll come back.
Right.
If at that point in time, we will reassess, but that's all I needed was, we're interested at looking at.
So does that mean
this
that
one.
whole field in there is gonna have to be regraded? and
Just
redone?
just
I mean, that
up to,
whole
just up to the
softball field?
outfield, just out to the fence.
And know how far down, say down to about mid-track, or about where the public is now, or does that have to be graded
It's
down?
about mid-track.
About mid-track?
Well, that's where the field is. The fence
Yeah,
would
so
go a
the
little bit
fence,
further.
the fence would be,
Almost
so just
3/4.
probably just past mid-track.
Okay.
Would probably need to be.
So
You're
you got-
regrading down rather than.
Well, I'm
towards
just
the
trying to
houses.
think down the road, are we gonna create another problem later as we regrade just half there and all the water,
There is a, so we already looked at, there's a drainage already existing that would be
Okay.
drained off towards those houses. It's a ditch there, or water drainage is already currently going
So
to.
we're not causing-
so we're not gonna cause problems down the road? we're not
We
gonna
looked at that
regrade.
already, yes. That was
Okay.
that was one of the first conversations of, where's this, all the water gonna go when we do this?
questions for me?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll jump through to the next topic. So, tax collectors, so tax collectors we have for